Most entrepreneurs don't fail because they lack ideas. They fail because they fall in love with the idea before they prove there's a market, a customer, and even a path to revenue. Welcome, or hopefully welcome back to The Reluctant Entrepreneur. My guest today is Jason Sherman, and he spent much of his career helping founders avoid exactly that trap. Jason is a technology entrepreneur, author, filmmaker, startup advisor, and AI founder. He's the author of Strap On Your Boots, a practical startup guide built around the lessons founders need most: validating ideas, understanding target markets, building MVPs, making data-driven decisions, and turning a concept into a real business. But Jason's story isn't just about startups. It's about reinvention. He's worked as a filmmaker, journalist, author, podcaster, teacher, software developer, and entrepreneur. Today, he's also connected to the world of artificial intelligence through Vengo AI as their co-founder and CEO, where the focus is helping businesses use AI to engage customers, search company knowledge, and create more effective sales conversations. In this episode, we'll talk about Jason's own entrepreneurial journey, the mistakes he sees founders make again and again, how storytelling shapes business success, and how entrepreneurs can use AI without losing sight of the human problem that they're trying to solve. My conversation with Jason begins right now. Stick around. Hey, Jason, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have our conversation today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for agreeing to be here or being voluntold to be here. I'm not sure what motivated you, but either way.
My team always holds the gun to my head.
Exactly. I call the show The Reluctant Entrepreneur. I should call it The Reluctant Podcast Guest, because sometimes that's what happens. But I'm glad you're here. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine and time travel a little bit. How did your entrepreneurial path begin? Or how did your career path begin? I guess we should go way before that. Were you always entrepreneurial? Did entrepreneurship find you along the way? What'd you do before you were entrepreneurial, if it came to you late? Give me a little Jason background.
It's a good question. I mean, I have talked about this in the past a bit because a lot of people want to know my origin story, I guess you would say, right? And it kind of fell into my lap as a kid. You know, I've always wanted to create things. So like as a kid, I would create, graphics on computers when they were, first popularized. I would create my own games. I would create my own comic book and sell them to my classmates. I would find products that I could sell to my middle school classmates that I would bring back from different countries. And like, I kind of kept doing these entrepreneurial things without knowing they were entrepreneurial. And then once the word started to become, ubiquitous with being a business person, and someone asked me when I was 16, I remember I was on a basketball court and we're all shooting hoops, and everyone went around and said, well, what do you want to do when you graduate high school? What do you want to do when you go to college? What do you want to be when you grow up? And everyone said a very basic answer of, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be, an athlete, I want to do this, that. And I said, I want to be an entrepreneur.
And then there was Jason. Yeah. What was your answer?
And I said, I want to be an entrepreneur. I said, I just want to have complete freedom and control over my destiny. I want to be able to create things. I want to be able to be my own boss, and I just work towards that goal.
Yeah. It's funny. You said, I just want complete freedom, and my brain stopped there for a second. And I'm just like, complete freedom as an entrepreneur? You don't get any freedom. You're the slave to everything in the beginning. But then you went on to say, of my own destiny, freedom of my own destiny. And I think that is the perfect description of entrepreneurship. You have the freedom to fail. You have the freedom to succeed. You have the freedom to sacrifice. You have the freedom to celebrate. You can go anywhere you want to go. Whereas a 9-to-5, nothing wrong with a 9-to-5. I worked a lot of those. You have the freedom to maybe move up in the company, maybe a little left to the right, right? But you can't just If you're working for a painting company, you can't just say, I want to go to Mars tomorrow. Let's have the company build rocket ships, right? That's already taken.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's a really good perspective. And for 16 years old, that's,
Yeah.
16-year-olds can barely even pronounce the word or spell the word entrepreneur, and you're already announcing that's what you want to be. Have you worked? You've worked across technology, filmmaking, journalism, education, startups. You do have that very entrepreneurial pedigree there. Looking back, what's the common thread that connects all of these, what seem like completely separate chapters? I'm sure there's a theme running through all those things. What would that be?
Yeah. Usually I would give you the boilerplate answer of storytelling, but I'm not going to do that today because I've done that quite a bit. So instead, I'm going to go back to our initial discussion on freedom. And the reason why I say freedom, and sure, it's freedom of your destiny and all that, but it also means that you have the freedom to wake up every day and decide what you work on. Now, you mentioned a 9 to 5. I've been in a bunch of 9 to 5s too. Like getting out of college, I had to work for at least a decade in the IT corporate world, which is what led me to be an entrepreneur full time when I realized that that was not for me. So now I can wake up every morning and have the freedom to decide, you know what? I have had this itch in the back of my mind to work on this new movie, and that's what I'm going to work on for the next year. That's what I decide to work on. Not I'm being told to work on it, not I have deadlines, not I have a boss telling me I have to get this done. No, I personally desire and want to create this new documentary or this new tech platform or write this new book or write this new screenplay or create a new course or mentor some younger kids that want to learn something, and that's what I'm going to do for the next few months. Whatever it is, I get to decide that. And all of the different things that I've done came from that initial seed of an idea of kind of ruminating in the back of my mind saying like, hey, don't forget that I'm back here and that you may want to work on me one day. And then one day I decided to do it.
That's pretty cool. That's a lot of insight early in your career. And yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I don't think I ever thought about it that way. I don't think I had that realization that that was a freedom I had. But I tend to do that anyway. I tend to only work on what I feel like working on, which means I drive everyone around me in my company completely crazy because,
Yeah.
I'm driving project A and then suddenly I walk in and I'm on project W, and they're like, what happened
Yep.
to A? And I'm like, what happened to A? Finish it. I'm on to the next thing.
Finish it. Yeah.
And I think entrepreneurs are, in the psychology books, there's the DSM. I think we're in there somewhere. There's a sliver of the spectrum dedicated for entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
There's all these psychological, conditions. I think we're one of them because there's a lot of commonality. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm sure you have too, and there's a thread running through it. We're all very different, yet there's this common thread that, what drives us is a little bit different. We are very conceptual, maybe a little bit less tactical. That's other people figure that out, right? In my case, I'm the visionary of the company. I created the products that we sell today. Even though I'm semi-retired from the company, I still own it. But I hate running a company. I love creating, and
Yeah.
that seems to be your case too. Because as a filmmaker, it's the ultimate creative expression. Entrepreneurship is a very creative expression. The tech world, coding, software, AI, like uber tech, uber creative. So there seems to be that creative flow running through you in all these separate things. Even journalism, I think, particularly today, requires quite a bit of creativity.
Definitely.
Was there a moment when you realized that you're just not building products, you're kind of building this methodology that you could share with others? As it seems to be it's tangible, but it doesn't seem to be like a physical thing. You really are creating methodologies and technologies that can be implemented in so many different things.
Yeah, and I think that comes from trial and error, right? Like everything else is discovering your mistakes and then avoiding them the next time you create something new. And early on, when I was really getting into the heat of startups, we'll say, 2010, when smartphones were really starting to make waves and apps were starting to come out. And I had already been building businesses for, 10 to 15 years before that, like right out of college. In college, I built my first company. And then out of college, I was building more companies. So I kept building new businesses. But when 2010 came around, that's when the smartphone really caught my attention. And of course, I read a lot of books, right? Everybody at that point didn't have what we have today. The internet wasn't, full of as much information as it is today. AI wasn't around for sure. And well, it was, but just not in the format that it is today. And
Good point.
so I discovered all these entrepreneurs, and they call themselves gurus, like with their stories of like how you can succeed, following my methodologies. But
Five
what I
simple
found is that
steps. Five simple
five
steps to
simple
becoming a
steps
millionaire. Yes.
for $5,000, and I realized that they were bogus because they were situational, right? They were, get $1 million investment from your rich uncle and buy 10 apartment buildings, and then you can be rich too.
Yeah.
Okay, Frank, like how am I going to get that? So I realized there was no book out there that could really truly teach me how to succeed with one key factor: not having money up front. That was the key for me. Was I need to come up with a strategy that works. So along the next couple of years, I started building my own startups, trial and error, using lean methodologies. I mean, we all know lean methodologies today, right? And so I was following that methodology and finding things that worked, things that didn't work, things that worked really well, and things that were completely outdated, et cetera, et cetera. And I started to formulate my own techniques and strategies and methodologies that worked for me. And then I started helping other entrepreneurs around me and letting them know, here's what I did, because they were saying, how did you do this? How did you do that? How did And I'm like, well, I got 10,000 users for my app in a couple of months by doing this. Oh, well, I didn't know you could do that, or I didn't, that's not in a book, or blah, blah, blah. So anyway, fast forward to 2015, 2016, I had just finished my second movie, The King's Highway, and I was, wrapped, edited, submitted to film festivals, et cetera. And I found myself in this very usual position of having time to reflect on what I'm doing and what's my next project and what am I up to. And I was in the middle of working on a tech startup, and I finished my movie. So I had a couple months. And what did I do? I did not take a break. I wrote a book. And I put all of these tactics and strategies and methodologies into Strap On Your Boots, and wrote it all down.
So that book right there, for my listening audience who's not watching this on YouTube or whatever video channel they subscribe to, I'm showing a picture of the book, Strap On Your Boots. So that is that kind of a synopsis of the stuff you learned in your days of building companies, the mistakes, what came out the other side, right?
Yeah, it's not just what I learned.
Moves.
It's also what I used and what I still use today. So even 10 years later, after I wrote the book, I still use the same exact methods in the book. Like, they don't change. It's not going to go obsolete. It's something that's evergreen. So it's the mistakes that I made, mostly the things that I validated that work. And one of the things I love doing, and I do this in my book, I do this in all my things, is I give really good real world examples. So instead of saying, here's how you do this thing, I said, in this project or in this company, here's how I did X, Y, and Z. And then I go through the steps of, here are the 3 steps I did. Now you duplicate this in your project. That's your homework assignment for the chapter. So that's kind of how I put the book together. It's almost like a course manual, which I then created a course called Startup Essentials based on the book that I then taught at Wharton and Drexel and a bunch of other schools. So, it all comes down to actionable, strategies and tactics that you can use in your daily day, in your daily work as an entrepreneur.
Give me an example of, like, keep it to about 1,000 mistakes. Give me one or two mistakes that you see that are very common that entrepreneurs make, particularly in the early days of startup, or maybe even at the beginning of the scaling of the company. There's different challenges to start a company, and there's different challenges to then take a company that you've managed to start and scale it. A whole different. I think that's even harder than starting from scratch. But what are the common mistakes that you see business founders make, either in the beginning or somewhere in the middle? And then I'm going to ask you after that, what are one or two first step things they could do to remedy those mistakes? What are the alternatives to that?
Well, I mean, the biggest one that everyone makes, and no one is immune from this. I luckily mentioned to you that I started out with lean methodologies.
Yes.
So I got really lucky that I avoided the bloat of the 20-page technical document, first version of an app situation. That's what people seem to always do wrong first. They come up with a concept of a platform, and they're always going to say it's going to be better than Facebook. I mean, I've heard that so many times, Mike. I can't tell you how many times, because it's been so many. It's going to be better than Facebook. It's going to be better than Instagram. It's going to be better than X, Y, and Z. Uber, Uber's another one I heard. And so they would come up with this 20-page, and I'm not kidding, 20 pages on a Word document that outlines how this platform is going to work. Now, in the back of my mind, I realized, okay, so they need at least, a couple $100,000 to build this thing. They don't have more than $1,000. So how are they going to build this thing, right? So having an idea and a 20-page plan isn't going to cut it. So I always, and what I tried to do, because I also at the time, I've been running a technology consulting business for going on it's past 23 years now, since 2003. So I've been consulting people and building these apps for people as a development company, right? So one of the things I would do if I took on a new client is I would say to them, listen, I'm going to take this 20-page document and I'm going to hand you back one page. And that one page is going to be your MVP, your minimum viable product. That is what I am agreeing to build for you. I'm not taking 20 pages worth of a consulting contract worth of payment from you, because that's unethical. And although 99% of the other development companies out there do that unethically because they just want to make money, I would rather be on the moral side of the line and say, I would rather create you a successful MVP, one page, core value proposition, get feedback from 100 people, iterate on that feedback, rinse and repeat that cycle. And that is how I've operated my business for the last 20 years.
What's been the most difficult entrepreneurial lesson that you had to learn personally, that not just teach to others, but what one comes from like real personal experience?
It's a frustrating one, Mike. I mean, and I think everyone feels this at one point, is how no matter how talented you are, how hard you work, how amazing your idea is, how much, traction you think you've gotten, how amazing the team is that you put together, and so many other factors that would sound amazing. If you don't have the right backing, the right funding, the right investors, the right budget for marketing and sales, you cannot scale your business. Mm-hmm. It is virtually impossible. And it's frustrating, man, because so many times people have looked at my platforms or my projects or my different businesses and they say, wow, that's incredible. You must have millions in funding. I'm like, actually, no, the investors won't fund until you reach a certain threshold of revenue or user base. And the catch-22 is, without the funding, you can't reach those numbers. So it's a vicious cycle. That's one of the heartbreaking things I learned early on that is still the same today, probably even worse now because of the era of vibe coding with AI. And so now you need to really show that your user experience and your traction and your business model works with flying colors before investors even look at you.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception with business owners that there's venture capital money just falling from the sky. And I read a stat, I forget what it was now, but it was less than 1%, well under 1% of companies that managed to get VC investment. So, when we watch TV shows like Silicon Valley, which was one of my favorite in that world, and others, the civilians out there are left with the perception that, I can start a company. I'll just get some, venture capital money in. We'll do Series A and B. We'll do the IPO. I'll be a trillionaire like Elon, and, we'll buy an island together and, rainbows and unicorns. That ain't real.
It's not going to happen.
It's just like people buy lottery tickets every day because people do win the lottery. They do.
Right.
However, the chance of people winning the lottery is millions to one.
Extremely slim.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the same is with venture capital money. And you're right. In order for smart investors to invest, they need to see some hope. They need to see some proof, and they need to know that you've already bootstrapped your way up. You've proven that you've got the mettle, to do this, and the passion and the grit and the determination. Okay, we'll take it from here.
Yeah, and it takes a long time for that to happen. Like for my AI companies that I have now, it took us several years to get funding. And then, now we're looking for the next round. And so we've had to get to a certain level before they start to talk to us. Now we're at that certain level. So now we got to go through that. And it takes a long time because people don't realize when you've raised money, it's not like you talk to an investor and the next day they write a check. It's, many, many months and sometimes years before someone writes a check because they want you to mitigate their risk. They want to make sure that when they give you money, that you're not going to blow it on parties, and hotels and whatever else I'm not going to mention. They want to make sure that you're going to put that into the business and that you're going to grow to like 10 times their investment within a couple of years.
Yeah.
I'm one of those types of founders. I'm not going to blow it,
Yeah, exactly. So you're a great example of an entrepreneurial mindset. Just look at all the things you're involved with. These are somewhat separated. They're not like linked. Journalism, filmmaking, tech, author, content creator in many mediums. How do you decide whether an idea is worth pursuing or whether it's just an interesting distraction? You do have the freedom to pursue everything you want, right? Anything you want. How do you discern, okay, Jason's only got so much bandwidth. Is this worth pursuing? Is this better than this? Do I drop this to do that? I mean, how does that come out the other end of your head?
That's a great question because especially in the last couple of years, I've been pushing out more concepts than I ever have before because of AI, right? AI's enabled me to get more out of, and I've had so many projects kind of sitting in a Google Drive or a Dropbox folder that I just couldn't touch because I realized how much work it would be just to get the concept into like a storyboard or into a mock-up and to be able to show people, here's my idea. So the answer is you have to show people what your idea is in order to get feedback. I'm always going to go back to that. It's always going to be showing people your concept and getting feedback because that's what matters. The people in the world that are, look at Facebook. They have how many billions of people using it. That's proof, right? That Facebook is, objectively a good company, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people use it. But like now,
from Matrix point of view, yeah, we can argue societally, but from a Matrix point of view, from a earnings point of view, from an investment point of view, yeah, they're great.
That's what I mean, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So, but now, if you ask people if they like Facebook, we can get into that conversation of what people think of it and do they like it. That's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
So you have to ask people like, here's my product, here's my mock-up, here's my, demo. What do you think? What's your feedback? And they'll tell you, oh, I think it's amazing. I would use this. I would pay $20 for it. Do you have it available already? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how you get feedback. So I do that for all my projects. I kind of try to get it to a certain point where it's demoable, where I can show people and then get some feedback. Same goes now when it comes to certain things like movies, for example. You bring up filmmaking a lot. It's a little different, right? You can't really show. I mean, you can make a trailer, but by then you've already shot a lot of footage.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't just make a trailer unless you're doing it in AI, and then you don't need anything at all. But people are still kind of on the fence on whether or not they want to see AI content. There's a big 50-50 divide on whether they want to see AI content or not, or do they like AI or not, or we should stop using AI. It's not creative. There's a whole nother conversation about that. So I've kind of always used non-AI tools to make my films, and especially the one I just finished, the NASA documentary, Before the Moon. I did not use AI for that at all. So at the end of the movie, it says, not use generative AI at all, used by created by human hands only. So, you really have to get some of the stuff you have to just do. And then, it's what you want. You said, how do you know if it's a passion project or people will like it? Well, you won't know if people like it until you show it to them. So if I make a new song in my studio and I put the song out and it goes viral, people love this music and they make it into TikTok clips and whatever. There you go. People like it. So that's another way of doing it, getting it out into the world.
Yeah, that's the thing about creative people is we create and then others determine whether it's, it's a success monetarily anyway, successful creation.
Yeah.
Let's talk about AI a little bit. I have if this could be the world according to Mike, here's the first of many things I would do. I would change the acronym AI to mean acquired intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence, because there's really nothing artificial about AI. AI was trained on all the great literary work, all the great journalistic, documentation, everything ever written, pretty much, and it's a learning module. It devoured trillions of pages of content at completely obscene speeds, that no other computer could previously ever do, and it retains all that. So that's acquired. Its base knowledge is acquired. I still think that when it starts making, it doesn't actually reason the way humans reason, but when it starts to create dialogue based on what it's learned that might become a new set of interpretations, it learns from itself. It's still acquiring knowledge. We acquire knowledge just at a painfully slow rate compared to any computer. We're not artificial. So I think some of the fear of AI is generated just starting with the name. AI needs a better press agent, right? And they need to come up with a different name for it. But at any rate,
well, that's why they call it ChatGPT, right? Because they figured out people will like ChatGPT because you're chatting with
who doesn't like
an
to
agent,
chat? Yeah, chat with your friends.
So
it
makes sense, and they call them agents, which is what they call them in the Matrix, the agents.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm going to ask you later. It's a blue pill or a red pill. I don't know. You don't have to answer that question. Well, I don't even know if this is real. You may not be real.
Yeah, we might be in a simulation right now for all we know.
Exactly. That's a weird simulation. Let's talk about Vengo, your AI company. What was the inspiration of that? Well, first of all, tell me about the name. I'd like to get the names out of the way. That's an interesting name, Vengo.
That's fun. Yeah, that's a fun. People probably don't realize it, but and maybe they know, maybe they don't from looking at my bios online. But I come from a Spanish background. I was born in the U.S., but my mother was born in Spain. So I thought of originally when I built Vengo, it came out of my other app, Spinner, which is a community community platform for people to get to know each other based on hobbies and interests. It's a video platform. And around 2021, before ChatGPT came out, I had added an AI piece to the app. So I was kind of ahead of the game. And I added this AI friend to help people navigate the app. People started saying, hey, we want our own version of that AI that we can then create for our own purposes, whether we want to sell products or we want to, have people talk to us, our fans and friends on DMs, on et cetera. And so that's when ChatGPT came out. And then I decided, okay, let me see if I can utilize that technology. So I utilized it to then create a kind of a creator marketplace where everyone could come together and let people talk to each other based on their AI agents versus, take an example of like someone like Taylor Swift. She's got 1 billion fans and followers around the world. She can't answer her DMs. It's impossible.
Yeah.
She probably has a team of like 500 people doing that for her. But if you could clone yourself based on your knowledge, your speaking style, your personality, your music, etc., your AI can then act on your behalf and talk about things just like you would and talk to your fans. That was the idea for Vengo AI back in 2022. So 2023, we and the reason we came up with the name of Vengo means like come here, come together, let's all go. It's a Spanish word, Vengo, or I'm coming to you now. So it's kind of like, hey, my AI is coming to you now to talk to you. So it's kind of, that was the idea behind it, Spanish word. And so at that point, after again, feedback, iteration, we got enough information from the market that said we were in the wrong market. It was not supposed to be a consumer product. It was supposed to be a business product where business owners could then train their AI on their knowledge base and their documents and their website to then answer questions from their potential customers on their website. So we built this whole platform around AI agents on proprietary websites to answer business questions, capture name, email, phone number, and give the leads to the business owner. We did that for about 1.5 years or so and gained a decent amount of customers till we once again realized in order, like you mentioned earlier, it's a great example. You said, well, how do you scale? Scaling is even harder. So how do you scale a SaaS subscription that's, $30, $50, $100 a month? How do you scale that? You need thousands of customers to do that. And, we were only able to get somewhere around 1,500. It's just not enough. And out of those 1,500, how many were paying, month after month?
Yeah.
The number keeps going down.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It goes down even more. So then we had to, pivot once again. And now if you look at our website, you'll see we're enterprise only. Now we're specifically going towards the large corporate market where, they need not just an AI agent, but generative AI search and AI and automation and AI, modules and all sorts of time-saving, revenue-generating AI modules that are going to help them save millions of dollars a year. That is the market we're in now, and it's the one that's now succeeding a lot more than the last couple markets we were in.
I've learned many things in my 34 years as an entrepreneur and counting. And many of the most impactful things I learned were completely counterintuitive. A few examples would be, if you want to sell more product, stop talking about your product, Mike. Just shut up. Stop talking about your product. What part of that makes sense in my brain? We sell a high-tech product. We're in the electronic manufacturing industry. We build equipment. I design all of the equipment. I write all the code. I do all that. I want to brag about all that stuff. I have all these bullet points, and nobody cares, Mike. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Create content that's valuable. Become an authority. Get some influence. Stop talking about your products. And eventually, I'm just like, I need to stop doing this. And it worked miraculously. And one of the other things I kind of learned is the whole less is more philosophy. We hear that as a buzzword, kind of almost like a Hallmark card. But, try and put that into practice. It's scary, to actually go, we're going to fire a bunch of customers. We don't want these certain types of customers anymore. Love you guys, great people, not for us. And, we're turning down money. And then opening up a space.
Been there and done that many times.
Yeah, that is hard to do, particularly for an entrepreneur, because we we don't like the word no. The word no only means not yet, when we hear it, and we find ways to get through it. But
when you get to that position, Mike, it's a good point. When you get to the point, and everyone should hear this, when you get to the point where you can say no to a client or a customer, then you've gotten to a certain level. You've made it.
Yeah, it's a benchmark. It definitely is a watershed moment when you can do that, and without fear.
Freedom. We talked about freedom. That's what I was talking about.
There it is. That's another great example. I'm glad you brought that back. So I think when you switched from to enterprise customers from just retail, you limited part of your market, and then you basically created a space to handle the juicier customers, the customers that would pay a higher fee, that would be more interested in it, that understood what they were buying more than retail market would. Whole level of sophistication, different.
Exactly.
You've taught and mentored and written, built, and hosted your own podcast. After all of that, what advice would you give to a founder that has a good idea but really doesn't have a clear path forward?
It's kind of a tough question because there's so many things you could tell them. I mean, build a mock-up, get as far as you can, learn everything you can about the idea, the industry, become an expert of some kind, wear as many hats as you can in the beginning to get as far as you can on your own. Don't rely on other people too early. I mean, I can go on and on. There's so many things you could say to them, but ideally, you really have to tell a new founder because everyone has ideas, right? You mentioned something just a few minutes ago. You said without fear. Something that people, when I go to my high school reunions or I talk to old friends or whatever it is, and people tell me they have an idea for something. Oh, I have an idea for a book, or I have an idea for a store, or I have an idea for a product, and insert XYZ thing, right? I asked them why they don't do it. It's like, well, why don't you do that? That sounds like a great idea. Oh, I'm afraid that it's going to fail. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose money. I'm afraid that I can't do it while I'm working at my job. I have to take care of my family, my kids. I'm afraid. I hear that word a lot. And I'm here to tell you, you have to get past the fear. You have to just believe that even if you don't reach the goal, you still succeeded because you broke past the fear. You tried something out of your comfort zone. You created something out of thin air. And that means you're now going to be in a new level of person, human being, where you're leaving behind the 99% of the people who are too afraid to try something. And you're now in the 1 percentile of people who are trying something. And then I can guarantee you this, whether you succeed or you don't, or you make money or you don't, whatever it is, you'll be happy. You'll learn a lot, which is good for brain activity. And you'll succeed on your next try, on your next venture, on your next project, because you'll have learned. And you got people like Mike and myself here with wealth of knowledge online that you can learn from, and reach out to people like us for help. If you need help, there's nothing to be afraid of. Yeah. What I would be afraid of is not doing something and then regretting it 20, 40, 50 years later.
Yeah. Well, that's great. One of the things that I learned eventually, I'm a good learner, but I'm a slow learner. And that was, obviously I had fear. Everything is scary at the early days, and you start something out of your garage, and you bootstrap you borrow money from family, you
credit cards,
empty your bank account, your credit cards are all maxed out, right? And you can't even go to a bank at that point. Of course, it's fearful. What I've learned is make peace with the worst. I would be sitting at an intersection. I have to go left or I have to go right. Well, I really want to go right, but it's too scary. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. It's riskier, has a higher reward potential, but it's riskier. Okay, Mike, what's the worst that can happen? Will it physically kill you? Well, no, don't be stupid. It's not going to kill me. Okay, scratch that off the list. Will it instantly kill your company? Well, no, my company could survive it, but it'll be embarrassing. Okay, stop. What's the worst thing that can happen? Well, I'll lose some money. I'll lose a little street cred. I'll be embarrassed.
Lose a little time.
My pride. I'll waste time. Okay, is that all you got? Is that it? Yeah, that's about it. Okay, well,
Go for it.
just assume that that could happen. Make peace with the fact that it could happen and do everything you can to make sure it doesn't. But that's the worst. And I remember when things were really, really tough, really tough. And I remember thinking, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is I can lose the company, but I can start again tomorrow.
Right.
Come on. It's like, it's not going to kill me. I'm still, this is years ago. I'm still young. I still got a lot of ideas. I got plan B, plan C, plan D. I've got a lot of evolutions of Mike in me. I'll just bring out the next one. And once I kind of came to peace with it, it was easy.
Yeah, and I love when people say that they don't have the time. That's a big one I hear from people. Oh, I just don't have the time. I'm so busy. I have work and my family and kids. And then I interrupt them and I say, how many hours per day or per week do you binge Netflix?
Right.
How many hours per day or week do you doom scroll Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or whatever other nonsense? How many videos are you watching? How much time are you spending? Oh, I watch 2 hours, of shows per night. I'm watching at least an hour's worth of content. That's 3 hours a day. That's how you build a company. 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
You're wasting it. You're wasting it on other people's content, on other people's projects, on other people's platforms. You should be building your own product, even if it's 1 hour a day. I tell them, and
Well, the reality is, and you and I have both been through. I know you as the creative force have experienced it. Say you set aside an hour to work on something, you start getting into the zone, and once you're in the zone.
Oh yeah.
Everything is timeless. Next thing you know, your wife's pounding on the door going, honey, it's been 9 hours. You said you'd be done in an hour.
It's dinner time. What are you doing?
Exactly. I have literally gone in when I got into that zone, and it happened mostly with coding. When I was doing some of the coding on our early machines, there's
that
time
happens.
and there's coding time. You get lost. But I would go in on a Monday morning and not come home till Wednesday afternoon. And I'm in this factory, we have it looks the same day or night. There's not a lot of windows in that part where I was. And I didn't have, I knew it was late at night. It's not like I didn't know, but
right.
It was
you didn't
out
care.
there. I was in this cocoon. Time was non-existent. Everything in that moment was effortless. Creativity just flowed from my body.
Yep.
I was just in the zone. But I didn't want to get into the zone. I didn't think I had time to do it. And next thing you know, that's all I had, right? So
that's all you have, I get it.
Kind of fake it till you make it. Force yourself to have that time. Keep your phone out of the room. And then once you get into that zone, you'll be striving for it. What's next for Jason before we finish up? What's next for Jason?
Well, now that I've completed like a vast majority of my more recent projects, whether movies, tech platforms, screenplays, and a whole wealth of other things I've done. Now I'm kind of in this phase where I'm juggling both those assets and selling them. And because now it's all about sales and fundraising. And when you're in that mode, and I think you know what I'm talking about, Mike, you need to focus on that before you move on to the next thing. But on the horizon are movies that I'm going to be making, platforms that I've built that I'll be pushing out to the public, screenplays that I'm writing, books that I'm working on. There's always something. There's always a song that I want to write.
There's no stop. There's no stop to the creative force behind Jason Sherman.
There's
Jason,
no such thing as retirement.
I know. Well, I think you stop working and you die, right? So I think that's, I think the secret to eternal life is stay busy, stay relevant, stay creative, whatever it is in any format. last question, because we're about out of time. How did you
Yeah.
define success when years ago, young Jason, how would young Jason leaving high school, going to college, define success, and how do you define it now?
When I was younger, I defined it as I think most people did when they looked at all of the people who were successful. They were rich. And I thought to myself, man, I can't wait to be a millionaire and be able to buy whatever I want and go wherever I want and do whatever I want. And as I got older, I realized that, yes, money makes things easier. Of course, we're not going to deny that. But as the saying goes, it doesn't buy happiness, right? But it does make your life easier. But I realized, going back once more time, I'm going to call it back one more time, is that freedom is the ultimate success. Being able to, again, wake up and decide what your fate is going to be and not let someone dictate it to you. That is the ultimate success, in my opinion, is having no fear and allowing your creativity, as you said, to flow out of you anytime you want without any consequences. Just all positive, feedback from the community around you and from your peers and from the results of your work without having to, like you said, advertise yourself. Just let your work speak for you. That's really the ultimate success, in my opinion.
That's great. I love that answer. That's you and I shared the same thing. I was asked that once, and I thought, that's a great question. I'm going to start asking all my guests that. And my answer was freedom, which is a little bit of a hack of an answer. It's like a hack in a video game because freedom involves money and other things. So it encompasses all that. It's a great bucket to carry all those things. But I think ultimately the goal of having the money, the goal of having some degree of notoriety in your space that allows you to continue to be successful, I think all of that are the monetary costs of freedom. And once you have freedom, and you purchased it with all the money and the time and the whatever, knowledge, wisdom, lessons, bruises, all that, then, it definitely is the goal because it encompasses so much. For my viewing audience, well, for all my audience, but particularly for those of you who are on YouTube right now, if you look down here, right below me, it says see more. Go down there and I'll have links to Vengo, Spinner, the book, strap on your boots, and the URLs associated with Jason. It'll probably be 20 inches long. You just have to doom scroll your way to the bottom of that list. He's got a lot of accomplishments and a lot of links, and I'll put as many as I can find on there. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, of course, when it's safe to do so, don't do it while you're driving. We don't want to lose any subscribers. Not that way. Go to that podcast app and look at the show notes, and all of that information on Jason and all of his various accomplishments will be there. Jason Sherman, thanks this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. You're very inspirational, and thanks for sharing your journey, the highs, the lows, the mistakes, the successes, and a lot of sage business advice to me and my audience. I really appreciate it. I know my audience does too.
Good. It was my pleasure. I appreciate it, Mike.
All right, here's some final thoughts. Jason's story reminds us that entrepreneurship is not one big leap. It's often a series of reinventions. A founder sees a problem, builds something, learns from the outcome, and carries those lessons into the next chapter. What stands out about Jason's journey is that he didn't just build companies, he turned experience into framework and then used that framework to teach, mentor, write, speak, and build again. For entrepreneurs, that may be the most important lesson. You don't need to have everything figured out before you begin, but you do need to stay curious. Test your assumptions, listen to the market, and keep learning as the business teaches you what it needs to become. Now, that is a wrap. Thanks for being part of our Reluctant Entrepreneur family. We've been very busy recording future episodes with fascinating guests, so be sure to subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. If you're an entrepreneur or know someone who would make a great guest, we'd love to hear from you. Visit reluctantentrepreneur.podcast.com, where you can apply or recommend a guest or just learn more about the show. And a couple of shameless plugs. I've started a new series under the Reluctant Entrepreneur brand. The new series is called Reluctant Lessons, Where Businesses Go Wrong. On this series, we dig into high-profile business failures and the story behind it all. So far, we've profiled numerous companies, including Rubbermaid, Kodak, Blockbuster, BlackBerry, Toys R Us, DeLorean Motor Company, and many, many more to come. There's absolutely no shortage. Check them out on this channel. And if you're interested in my book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Anatomy of a Business Startup from Uncertainty to Unstoppable, it's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon, and as an audiobook on both Audible and Amazon. And finally, to everyone listening or watching, if you find yourself stepping into entrepreneurship, whether by choice or by circumstance, remember this: sometimes the path we never planned becomes the journey we were meant to take. Thank you all so much for being here. I truly appreciate every one of you, and I'll see you again soon.